Awesome. And so, yeah, the point here is Alessandro's going to talk a little bit about things that have worked well in terms of sharing and talking about Hallow. We'll spend, 20, 25 minutes on that. And then we'll have Colleen and Grant share some of their experiences as kind of heralds and what they've done to kind of spread the word about Hallow. What we found is that, being called to be a evangelist or being called to be a missionary kind of for Christ is many times scary. And I, for one, found it incredibly daunting when I was a kid. When I was in high school, I found just talking about my faith was an impossibility. And so we found that sharing Hallow is something that is a low barrier way. It's not intimidating. It's just asking someone to download an app. It has been an effective way to spread the word about prayer. So that's the theme for tonight. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Alessandro. And after we're done for tonight, we'll have a happy hour afterwards. So basically, if you want to stay on and just grab whatever beverage you'd like, it could be water if you prefer. We can kind of chat and discuss the takeaways from the night. So with that, go ahead and pass it over to you, Sandro.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your evening or morning, depending where you are in the world, to join. I'm Alessandro. I think I've met at least half of you before. I'm one of the co-founders of Hallow, head of growth, and have had a lot of conversations around how to talk about Hallow, sharing Hallow, different things. And so the idea here is to help share a little bit of that perspective to give not only confidence, but also resources and examples of how to talk about things, just to make sure you feel well equipped. I'm also, I tend to go long, so I'll probably have to be cut off some point. There's probably more content. I have a little deck that I'll walk through. So I'll move relatively quickly. If there's stuff we want to dive into or discuss, I love having stuff be as interactive as possible because, I could just sit here and think I'm being super great. But the point here is to be useful for you. So please do jump in, ask questions, get some dialogue going. Last thing before we get started, shout out to Aaron, who has by far the greatest Zoom profile icon I've ever seen. Just looking very, very suave there. So, all right, jumping in. And I do not have screen sharing capabilities. Brian, if you could help delegate some of your omniscient and omnipowerful authority, that'd be amazing. All right, perfect.
There you go.
Perfect. Here we go. Teamwork. Make the dream work. All right. Here we go. A little roadmap. Try to get a little punny and also try and incorporate as much humor as possible here. So we've got the facts, frequently asked questions, and the inspiration. Let me just get set up here.
While he's getting that set up, this is a great opportunity to get ideas for the Olympics to, bring your team to victory by coming up with ways of sharing that promo code. So that's another quick plug for the event over the next 3 weeks.
Let's see. Let's keep running count how many puns we can get in this conversation. So we've got 2 so far. Or I don't know if this qualifies, but anyway. All right. Before we get started, just like the main takeaway of why we're doing this, we heard from a lot of heralds, either not knowing how to talk about Hallow or frustrated that some of the conversations didn't go as well, not just related to Hallow, but talking about prayer with people in your lives. And so a little bit of that is kind of information, a little bit is strategy, and a little bit is just kind of patience and how to work and kind of evangelize into how to evangelize. And so I think of this as kind of like 3 concepts that we kind of build individual pillars to become great heralds. The first one is know what you're talking about. So there's just some factual information that is always helpful and important to keep in mind. The second is know who you're talking to. So this is like a sales concept of like know your audience. But really even in the evangelization, concept, and we're going to talk about this, like knowing what the needs of the person you're talking to are, taking the time to listen and get to know someone, it's important. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution for anything in the world, and particularly not someone's spiritual journey, prayer life, faith life. And then having an attitude and accompaniment. So what that means, we'll get into, but not being overly prescriptive or preachy, things like that. So, but we'll get into all that. Like I said, there's going to be way more slides here, so I'm going to move than there should be, but like to be ready for all the different questions. So we'll move, quickly here. I always like to just start with a little bit of context, which I think is important, particularly because we have people from different generational perspectives. And I think the context with which we grew up often informs how we see the world, how we think, how we understand what's the main drivers or experiences or perspectives people have. And I think it's important, particularly when we're talking about working with kind of younger generations or talking to either in a ministry capacity, peer capacity, family capacity, keeping in mind what actually the state of the world is and not taking anything for granted. So this is probably not too surprising, not too inspiring, but I promise we'll end with better news. The kind of cultural Catholicism, cultural Christianity is not really the foundation with which many families and people experience the world today as they're growing up. Whether you look at number of ordinations, number of marriages, number of baptisms, confirmation, they're down between 30 and 50 percentage points. And I think that's important because I think we often take the foundation that maybe we have in our lives in terms of formation or family experience as kind of a given. And I think we just need to remind ourselves that's increasingly not the case. And starting from that no assumptions perspective, I think is often helpful because if we start with expectations and someone doesn't have that experience or perspective, that can feel very alienating. And that's not something obviously we want to do. It's also important that although that kind of large kind of disaffiliation from institutional religion is definitely part of the world today, it's not just unique to religion. Over the past decades, kind of relationships with large anything, so big business, big finance, big pharma, big government, we as a society today are much more focused less on just trusting big organizations because of all the scandals that have happened over the past decades, whether that's in the church, whether that's the financial crisis in 2008 or 9, whether it's kind of fake news, whether it's politics speaks for itself. Definitely not going to get into that. But just this kind of detachment from just trusting large organizations, do as I say or believe me, and more on kind of local personal relationships, building individual trust and kind of buy-in at the idea or individual level. And I think that's also really important for us to keep in mind. The kind of hope-inspiring news here in terms of kind of the religious context within which we're working is that a lot of people have definitely left kind of saying that they're Catholic or Christian. That's kind of, so this data here is people that identify as religious and spiritual. People are not leaving kind of their perspectives on faith and becoming atheists. Right? Like there's literally almost the exact same percent of atheists, like every decade for the last 60 decades. There's this kind of new category of people who describe themselves as spiritual, but not religious. And so you can see here, like all of the shift away from institutional religion almost is to the spiritual, but not religious. And so from a theological perspective, that's kind of weird to say that you're spiritual, but not religious. But it's that idea of, I want to ask these questions. I'm searching for the answers to the questions in life, but I've had bad experiences with whether it's my faith community, faith leader, the church broadly. And this is across everyone here. So you can see on the right side, it's basically regardless of political party, gender, racial perspective, this is just across the board. So that's not great news, but it's the silver lining is people still want to ask those questions. And so if we can give them the space and have those conversations in a way that's helpful and structured in the right way, there's a lot of reason to believe that it can be powerful. This will kind of lead into some of the frequently asked questions, but the world has responded and said, great, you want to be spiritual or not religious? That's perfect. Let's take those traditions of, I'm sure many of you heard of mindfulness, secular meditation, strip out all of that outdated ideology that doesn't fit in with the, 2000s, and just let's focus on the techniques. And so there's been this explosion of meditation apps across, there's literally over 3,000 meditation apps in the US App Store. And we start to see just that really permeate the culture, apps like Calm and Headspace, which I'm sure many of you know. But the fundamental problem here, and this will tie into how we start talking about Hallow, is the metaphor of living a fulfilled and mission-driven life as a metaphor between sailing from point A and point B on a ship. And this is a metaphor that I often use talking to people when we talk about secular versus faith-based meditation. In order to get from point A to point B on a ship, you need two things. You need there to not be a hurricane. It's very challenging to do anything in a hurricane, just ask Grant. or some of the other people here who live in the U.S. Southeast. But you also need a compass. What secular meditation does is it really focuses just on that first part. Right? There's also some spiritual danger there, but just from a purely practical perspective, it really focuses on calming the storm in the mind, the physiology of stress, and that's helpful from a medical perspective. But even if you have a calm sea, without a compass to know what virtue is, what your mission in life is, what purpose is, a true north, it's really hard to get anywhere. And so that's how we describe kind of what some of the challenges are with just the secular approach to meditation, and why a contemplative approach to prayer, a meditative prayer approach, it provides that compass, that true north, which is God, the Trinity, Jesus. And so that's a metaphor I just want to equip everyone with, and it has pretty good success. All right, we got lists, we got numbers, what do we got here? So, all right, what is Hallow? So this is like the factual part, know what you're talking about. On the right is the key stats. I think probably most of you have heard these from Brian or in the Slack channel or whatever. But if you're talking about size, the only thing I forgot to put here was founded in 2018. So all of this is a year and a half's work of amazing people like yourself dedicating their lives to this. When we talk about what Hallow is, what kind of the key elements, we're really focused on meeting people where they are. And if there is one place where most people in the modern world are, it's on their cell phones. And so, we often get why an app? Well, that's the reason, right? Prayer in your pocket, Jesus always there wanting to talk to you. There's a slide later on called Prayer in Your Pocket, so we'll get to that. But meeting people where they are, a combination of technology and theology, and that's done at a very high level. 100% Catholic, and I'm sure we've gotten a lot of questions around that across the group. Like, is this new agey? Is this legit? Is this really Catholic? We got plenty of evidence to the affirmative there. And then particularly when we talk at the end about being aware of what people need in their lives in this moment, finding the right angle. Some people are really looking for that I'm stressed, I'm anxious, taking a mental health approach, but then also lost spiritually and focusing on a spiritual health approach. The main takeaway here is that there's a lot of different angles and a lot of things we try and do, and it's about often listening to see what the right kind of pitch is. We can hit all of those quickly here. Here we go. Pray in your pocket. Meeting people where they are. The two big challenges a lot of people have is, I don't know how to pray. I forget the words. It's been a long time. I'm unfamiliar with this stuff, or I don't have enough time. Right? I'm busy. I'm on the run, and so the description of the app there is, that's great. Just, pick something random. Now we have the daily Hallow, right? Where you can it'll assign you something random. You don't have to make any choice. Just pick how long you have in as little as 5 minutes or even the minute meditations. Press play, close your eyes, and we'll do the rest, right? And so that's like a no stress, absolutely known time commitment, no memorization required. We'll guide you. We'll kind of we'll put you in the same room as God, is how we often describe it. We'll give you the structure of the technique, the words, the prompts, and then leave plenty of silence for your own prayer. But it takes away all the stress. And so that's usually a good way to describe it. In terms of why Hallow exists, I think, many of us have said there's a bunch of stuff in the secular world in Silicon Valley that looks great, but is really lacking the faith perspective. There's a bunch of stuff on the faith perspective that's great, but it can often be described as, Windows 98 type generation experience. And so trying to kind of create that upper right-hand quadrant is really what we're all about. So that hopefully is not surprising to anyone having seen the app already. But that's really one of the main inspirations. Definitely Catholic. So we've got Bishop Rhodes is the chairman of the USCCB Committee on Doctrine. Is a big supporter of ours, mentor of ours. You can Google, this is on our press page, hallow.com/press. We've got articles from every major Catholic outlet talking about it's legit is basically the takeaway. And we've really been focused on that, making sure that it's authentic to doctrine. We'll get into this tactically, how to talk about it with some frequently asked questions stuff. But the main reminder here is if you forget any of this, want any of these links to send people, if you just go to our press page and we can drop that in this Slack, it'll have all this. And that's usually pretty helpful. So 100% Catholic, but also accessible. So in the same kind of vein as, not everyone is coming from a really strong faith experience or life already. Trying to have a welcoming, not preachy approach, kind of modern design, hopefully a reasonably okay UI, user interface, not taking stuff for granted, using the language of everyday life. And so we're really focused on accessibility in all of those ways, design, but also the way we present the content, not being overly preachy in language that is accessible. This, you don't have to spend a bunch of time here. The point is that in a number of different dimensions, the audio-guided nature, the being able to help people develop a habit of prayer has been really rewarding. So these are all user quotes. Under, like, the black text is user quotes, and then the purple text is like summarizing what they're experiencing. But basically positive things. Yeah, we can return to this if there's questions on it. And mental health. The alternative version of this slide set is titled "And It Works." So this is secular research on the effects of those who pray from a mental health perspective. So whether you're looking at dealing with addiction, social interactions, emotional resilience, those who pray do better is basically the takeaway, and we can share all this stuff in terms of dynamics. But the thing I always say is we believe grace is not only physically or metaphysically efficacious, but also physically efficacious. Grace helps us physically, not just mentally, which is good. All right, some frequently asked questions. Moving right along here. Our ancestors didn't have apps, so neither do we. We've gotten this recently from some priests. Two responses to this one. Starting at the bottom. We also used to not have Bibles that people could read. That's the Gutenberg Bible. We could have easily said, well, if we give people Bibles in their homes, they're not going to come to Mass anymore. And that's really not the right approach, right? We want to help people. We're called to pray without ceasing, first of all, and that's straight from Scripture. And so giving people a resource to incorporate prayer into all aspects of their life is what we're about, right? That's what becoming a saint is about. The top metaphor is that Blockbuster did not go out of business because people stopped watching movies or television. They do that now more than ever, actually. But the world changed, and how people accessed information changed. Blockbuster decided not to, and that allowed Netflix to enter the stage. So we're basically just being cognizant of the core needs that people have, right, which is for spiritual direction. We always in Hallow stay very focused on directing people to the sacraments, right? We're never going to be a sacramental replacement, but giving a resource to help expand and have the spiritual search at all times, not just the couple hours a week you might spend in church. That's really what we're about. And so I think framing it in that way, the Bible metaphor usually makes the priest laugh. But it can be helpful to answer that question. And if you need extra backup or data or whatever, right? He literally said, go into the world, proclaim the gospel. If we don't do that, if we don't do something different, this is where we're at. So 37% of people in a recent poll from Word on Fire of Catholics are considering leaving the church, and the median age of disaffiliation is 13 years old. So put a little fire in the belly of people, kind of need a little extra moving along. He's like, it's not going great, so we should probably try something else. I'm not paying for prayer. Why is this a paid thing? The first response is great. You don't have to, right? So that's why, relative to any other meditation app, Hallow gives the most content away for free than anyone else by far. In terms of audio-guided meditation apps, or most of the daily content updated every day based on the daily gospel, daily rosary, is part of the free forever version. All of the guest sessions, all of the minute meditations. I think we have an article that actually breaks down what's all free that maybe Brian can share. So really focusing on that part is important to say there is a free forever version, including the family functionality, the community functionality, all that. And then we did write a blog post. We really did prayerfully discern this question of why do we have a premium version? Why is there a paid subscription for the rest of the content? I would encourage you to check that out. I think it's really helpful. Alex, Eric, Brian, and the rest of the team contributed to it. The main three reasons are we really believe, particularly for our younger generation, unless something looks and feels like what you would expect from Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, people just aren't going to use it, right? And so that's the Windows 98 problem in the technology. And in order to have kind of world-class developers, that does have costs associated with it. At the same time, peace has consequences, maybe not the most eloquent way to say this, but we really didn't want to sell ads as a primary way of generating the money needed to develop the app. We really want the app to be a place of peace, totally separate from the world. I think the great part about Hallow is you press play and then you don't even use the phone anymore, right? It's really the prayer-focused event. So we don't want to sell ads and we don't sell user data. So that kind of left, so going to people for subscriptions. The other question is, well, you could do donations, which is true. And we do have some people that do donate to Hallow, actually on top of their subscription. So motivation out there. But there's this concept in kind of behavioral economics of having skin in the game, right? So there's research, if your employer gives you a gym membership for free, you actually use the gym less than if they give you a discount and you have to pay part of it. And so by investing in your prayer life, you actually end up praying more. So it's actually more effective in your own life to have a better prayer life by actually investing in it. So those are a few different angles for a few different questions. And I'm happy to come back to this if we want to ask any other variations. Meditation isn't Catholic. The quippy answer is, well, not according to the Catechism. So other than the title, everything on the screen is directly from the Catechism. So the fourth section of the Catechism is on the life of prayer. This is on the section talking about the types of prayer. There are three types of prayer. First is vocal prayer, which is what the formal prayers we're used to praying every day. The second is meditation. And the third is contemplation. I could spend 10 minutes on this slide, but the main takeaway is what we say when we mean meditation in the Catholic context is this. These are all quotes, right? So a quest, the mind seeking to understand the why and how of Christian life in order to adhere and to respond to what the Lord is saying. So this is basically just saying we know things to be true. We have the Bible, we have the dogma, the Catechism. But in order to figure out what we're supposed to do every day, we take those truths, we confront them with our own lives, and we pray, Lord, what are you calling me towards in this moment, in this day, in light of this truth? And that is, for those of you who have done the Lectio Divina sessions, that is what that is, right? You take the gospel, you say, Lord, what are you telling me in this moment? And that is kind of a meditative approach. That's seeking what you're being called to do, right? It engages thought, imagination, emotion, desire, right? All those things. There's a really unfortunate, I'm sure many of us have experienced, word association problem in the world. Like when you say meditation, people think India, they think the Far East, non-Christian practices. But there really is a 2,000-year-old history. I mean, Jesus going up on the mountain is sweating blood. You could describe that as a meditative experience. You have the early desert fathers and mothers, right? This stuff goes back to the origin of our faith. So the best thing you can do if you run into that problem is just avoid the word, right? So whereas the meditation word triggers a lot of those things, you could just say, oh, let's just pray together and do Lectio Divina together or something like that, and say, oh, great. So how did you enjoy that meditation, right? And kind of sneak it in afterwards. Just avoid. It's not really important when you call it. Much more important doing it and experiencing it. For the sake of completion, the contemplation kind of technically is a little bit different than meditation, whereas meditation is that active seeking to understand what you're being called towards. Contemplation is that resting, the gaze of faith. One of my favorite quotes, the Catechism actually quotes St. Teresa here. Contemplative prayer, in my opinion, is nothing else than a close sharing between friends. For those of you that are married or close family members, those times where you're not really saying anything, but you're in the same room with someone and you're just really experiencing that shared love, that shared gaze, resting with God. That's what contemplation is. Okay, inspiration. All right, we've got the last three slides here in my last 3 to 5 minutes. So we start with accompaniment. There's this book, Christus Vivit. There's a lot of glare. This is the Pope's latest apostolic exhortation to young people in the entire world of God. And the main message that he came with for today's world is Christ is alive, and he wants you to be alive with him. And one of the main metaphors that came out of this whole process of putting together the exhortation was the metaphor of the road to Emmaus. And so this is the apostles leaving Jerusalem. They're hanging out, they're walking. The word Emmaus is literally not a place. Some biblical scholars have actually labeled it literally meaning nowhere, like they're just out. And Jesus shows up, and this is like one of the greatest metaphors ever. These guys who spent 3 years with him, hanging out like nonstop. They're like, oh, I don't know who this guy is, right? And so that's like important part of metaphor number one. No matter what your experience has been, or how much you perceive someone to know or think, we can always kind of forget, right? So if the apostles could forget Jesus, anyone in our lives could, right? So even if you see someone in the church every Sunday, or you think they know what's going on in their lives, or that everything's fine, they're not stressed, whatever, it's really hard to know what's going on in someone's heart. So basically, part one is not taking anything for granted. So Jesus shows up, like, oh, hey, you want to walk with us? This is obviously paraphrased. So he just starts walking with them, right? And he doesn't show up and say, hey, guys, you're going the wrong way. Jerusalem's this way. He just walks with them and listens. He literally doesn't say anything for the first couple lines, and they're talking whatever going on. And so the point here is to just focus on accompaniment to start, right? Form the relationship, journey with someone, build that personal relationship. You don't have to talk about, the Trinity on your first conversation, right? Just, how are you? What's going on in your life, right? Get to know someone. Where are you going? What's your journey like? You don't just like stop people abruptly and say, hey, idiot, you're going to Jerusalem. You're going the opposite way of Jerusalem. And that's really the main, I would definitely don't call anyone an idiot in general, but particularly in the context of evangelization, walk with people, and then as you build a relationship, then he eventually reveals himself. They're like, oh my gosh, and then they end up going in the right direction together. So that's really kind of the main mindset we want to be in to start conversation. This is it's a 3-minute YouTube video. We're not going to watch it. Simon Sinek, this is like big business guru guy, who I definitely recommend watching. He has a book called Start With Why. And the main takeaway here is people don't buy into things, companies, products, because of what they do, right? Because of the features. They buy into the why. It's solving a problem in your life. And there's great examples of Apple and Netflix and other great companies with focusing on user needs. And so and this is the final slide. We all have different needs at different times. And the point of what we're trying to do at Hallow is to build a resource to help people go through whatever they're going through. These are some of the most popular ones. I won't address each of them. So the top is like in some user interviews and some focus groups we've done, common refrains we've heard from people. And then the bottom are user quotes. Positive ones, obviously. So I'm too distracted, too noisy, can't seem to find the time, struggling with anxiety. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm new to this. I keep getting a rut. I can't keep up with it, or I feel alone. The point is that prayer addresses all of those things. We at Hallow are working on ways to provide solutions to those challenges. But if you try and pitch the solution to the wrong person, it doesn't work, right? So it really needs to start with the why for that person, right? And that begins with the company. So the first step to the journey is listening, developing a strong relationship, show interest in that person, what's going on in their life. And then as you start to understand what their why is, what they need in that moment, then we can start pulling from how prayer can help, how Hallow can help, and kind of matching it to that. But trying to kind of force fit what is most important to you or to your friend or whatever might not be the right fit. So that's kind of the big takeaway. We've given you a bunch of information. The answer, there's an answer to everything for most of the hard questions. You don't have to memorize all that, but the biggest takeaway is it starts with one relationship at a time, starting with listening, get to know people, don't try and get it all done in one shot, and then finding out what's really driving them, what they need in their life, and then we can start working in that direction of how prayer can help. So I will end my extremely long monologue here. I don't know if we got any questions in the chat or anything, but would love to, if there's any questions. I've got an appendix full of all kinds of exciting stuff. Got people who got questions that we didn't address up front, but thoughts, criticisms, feedback.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Alessandro. I thought that was really helpful. If people do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and shift to Colleen so that Colleen has some time to share, and then Grant as well. And then afterwards, we'll have time to ask questions, and we'll open it up, and we'll lead into the happy hour session. So with that, Colleen, you want to go ahead and share maybe some tactics, things that have worked well, ways that you've shared the app with others. I think Alessandro did a great job of kind of giving the structure on like why you're going to share it. Maybe you and Grant can talk a little bit more about how you've shared it, what's been successful, and that kind of thing. I think you're on mute. You got it. You got it. Okay.
We all have the ability to share it, and we all have our strengths. And so the great thing is that we can tap into that and see what works best. And the first thing that I do when I want to talk about Hallow to someone, especially like my priest or anybody else, is to pray beforehand. And I can promise you that when you ask God to help you share Hallow with others and to share about him, he's going to help you every step of the way. So that's the first and foremost thing to kind of give me the strength and the courage that I need to share Hallow. The second thing is just be excited about Hallow. They're going to feed off of your excitement. And then of course, the third thing, is to just figure out your why. We were kind of talking about that with Alessandro, but for you to share, think about why you use Hallow, why you love Hallow, and why you want to share Hallow. And I think when you figure out why it's important to you, it's going to be easier to share it with other people. So I talk with my priest about it. I work for the church. I am an admin assistant to our Monsignor. And the first thing that I found out is that you really need to get the priest on board. Getting your priest on board is essential, because if you get him on board, then you're going to be able to get the staff on board, and you're going to be able to get the parishioners on board. And so what we did when we were having Mass indoors is we had a flyer that Joe had printed out for us, and we did a bulletin insert. So everybody got a flyer with our personal code, and we also shared it on our social media. And you can also do that personally. So if you're not big on talking boldly about Hallow or your faith, you can do it in a way that's kind of easier for you. We do it with the Hallow Daily Quote. So we reshare the quote, and then I personalize it, and then I give our unique code for that, and that has worked out very well. You can always ask for a bulletin announcement in the bulletin. So once you get your priest on board, and I think that's super easy to do, because you're going to be able to give him a subscription for life. So get him excited about it, and then maybe he can do a pulpit announcement. It's best if he does it, because like I said, everybody's going to follow the priest. But even if you're able to do a pulpit announcement, that's great too. And then maybe you can talk with the priest about having a table after Mass and be able to pass out the flyers. So I would recommend talking to your priest, get him using the app for a while, and then talk with him again about how to share it with his ministries as well as the parishioners. And I know that Brian and Alessandro, all of the guys, they're so eager to talk with you and to help you with that. So if you need help with a Zoom meeting to talk to your priest, I know that they're able to do that. So like I said, I talked about the social media, and then I've kind of thought of some ways outside of the box to do that. So I've already been in contact with our president of the Newman Club over with our university, and we're getting him hooked up with it. We have an area or an organization in Bakersfield. It's called Current Catholic, and it's not affiliated with any one church. It's just kind of an umbrella for all of the churches to come together. And I'm talking with them, and we are going to share Hallow with them. And then we have some exciting opportunities to work, hopefully with Father Nathan Cromley, and get that with him. So we're working on that as well. I actually had a conversation today, because I always talk about Hallow because I'm so excited about it. And I was talking with a residential facility activities director, and this is an independent living facility. And we were talking about bringing communion to the residents, and she loves Hallow. So we were able to talk about Hallow, and I sent her the flyer that has my unique code on it, and she's printing it out and sharing it with all the residents and staff on that live there in the facility. So we're really excited about how Hallow is working and how God is using this opportunity to just share. I mean, that's what's exciting to me, is just to be able to be to share the word with God and just to bring people closer together. And I think when you have that excitement, you're not going to have any problem sharing it. You know, it doesn't need to be scary. Nobody cares about the numbers as much, although that is important, but really just getting people connected with God. And you ask God for his help, and you're going to breeze through it. It's going to be absolutely perfect. So if you need some extra answers or want to talk with me about what I've done, you can hit me up on Slack. Otherwise, be sure to use the guys, and then they will absolutely help you and get you going. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Colleen. And for those of you who don't know, Colleen is our Herald lead for Group 6, and Grant is our Herald lead for Group 2. So he'll go next here momentarily. I just did want to add something that she mentioned. We do offer Hallow for free for life, the premium version for all priests and religious, and people who are going through the discernment process, who are in in a seminary as well. So just want to throw that out there. People don't know that. We also just launched an EDU discount. So if you're a college student or you know college students, we have a discount that is total of $11.99 for a year. So it's basically $1 a month for the annual plan through the EDU discount as well. So just want to let you guys know that. And with that, I'll let Grant go and share his thoughts, and we'll open up for questions.
Of course, I had like this nice pathway in my head, and it just, it goes away because I have hurricane brain right now. I'll start with a story. So I'm in Houston today. I took a break from recovery in Lake Charles yesterday. I said, I've had 13 days of this. I need to get out and have a normal breath of fresh air. So I came here without really any plans except to have internet access for work. And today I needed to go to confession. So I picked, there's the Dominican church here that I really like, got in the confession line, and I was praying, like Colleen said, start with prayer. I'm sitting there praying at Divine Mercy Chapel because there's a lot more people in line than I thought there were going to be. And someone starts talking, and I'm very attentive to everything else but my prayer. So I get distracted into the conversation. And the lady across from me mentioned, she's like, oh yeah, I think I've prayed like a decade here, or half a decade of my rosary somewhere else today, and now I'm trying to get through it. And I thought to myself, I know what that's like. Maybe I should tell her about Hallow. So I end up, go to confession. It's great. I'm absolved, white as snow. Come out. She goes to confession, and I go and I sit in the church, and they happen to go, I'm not going to daily mass, but they go in to wait for mass. And was like, okay, get the phone on, write down the link. And I talked to her a little bit about it before I went into the church. Said, hey, you said, it's hard for you to focus or you get distracted. There's this thing called Hallow that will guide you through everything, help you dedicate, and bring you through the prayer without as much effort or anxiety about, oh my gosh, I'm distracted again, like I'll just give up. Helps you push through. I didn't come here planning to share Hallow. I mean, I'm just trying to sleep and think straight for a bit. But I don't know where there's that little opportunity. And I wouldn't have noticed it if I wasn't, one, praying for sure, but two, not absorbed in my own little world on my phone, ironically, because, right, like we said, people are going to use something that's akin to Facebook or Instagram in caliber and design because it's attractive and it's easy to use, but it's not a good excuse for using those apps all the time either, and that's something I struggle with. So being present to what's actually happening around me, whether it's in the confession line or at work or when I'm visiting a campus ministry, those little nudges appear. And something else in my spiritual life this past year has abandonment. It's just been coming at me left and right, different saints coming up, different prayers. So I've really tried to grasp onto that. Okay, like I'm here, God's here too. What are we going to do today? I don't have a plan. I do a planner, but I don't. What is he going to show me? And then having the confidence and the trust in that little opportunity that he gives you to just kind of jump for it. I mean, I've never met this woman. I'll probably never meet her again, but I'm hoping that giving her that link is going to open up this whole world of prayer meditation in a different way if she's like me in demeanor, and that she'll be able to share it with someone else. And I wrote on the envelope, like, hey, here's my code. I don't care who you give it to. It's 3 months free. Go for it. And I've had other instances like that. And this wasn't a good example of accompaniment, but with friends in life, right? Like really being present to them and just trying to have a holy and charitable friendship with them, not proselytizing them, not always giving them advice or encouraging them, even just listening and being there. Those have been the ways and the times that I've been able to share this app and prayer in general and faith in general a lot more deeply than, for instance, when I post the link to our young adult page. I did that a couple weeks ago. I don't know if I got downloads. It's hard for me to figure it out, but it's out there. I don't find that as effective personally. I know Colleen working with a parish, it's like our bread and butter. It's so not my bread and butter, and the pandemic has made it even harder. So if you are also struggling with the pandemic and the hurricane and X, Y, Z, whatever it is, just don't be afraid to take any shot, right? Or any chance that there is to share this, whether it seems like it makes sense or it seems like a real shot in the dark. Because like Colleen said too, God's, what God wills will be, and we can either get behind it or we cannot. We can fight against it. So today, actually, the meditation, my penance was to say the Lord's Prayer and stop at "Thy will be done." So I was like, oh wait, I think they have an Our Father challenge, which I haven't done yet, but I skipped on to "Thy will be done," and I did the meditation. It was like, how do I get in line with that will? And it's by being attentive and by being hopeful and trusting and listening and doing. And asking God, hey, if this needs to happen, make it happen. If this person needs this to happen in their life, please help me to get it to them. Trying to think any other general tips. Don't be shy with your code because it's unlimited. The 3-month one, right, it's there. The worst you can hear is no. So why not put it out there? Now I get it with the 1 years. Maybe find special people you really think you're going to use them and get them out. But the 3 months, put them everywhere. And know your product. That's something I struggle with, especially the past 2 weeks. I've had like no internet service at home, so it's been hard to even use Hallow. But be in tune with it yourself. Know the things you like about it, or be honest about the things you struggle about. Even using this app, how you still struggle in your prayer life, and that will help other people to feel real and open to God in their prayer life, not like we're some perfect solution or answer, right? Because we're all struggling together. I was looking at what the question was. The family feature, I'm not super in tune with, so I will turn that back over. But that's my garbled hurricane brain 2 cents on things.
Yeah, no, that was great. Really, really appreciate it, Grant. I think your story really hits on a lot of things, and it's that people have, they come from different walks of life, and you never know when just like a really small moment can change someone's life, which is super exciting, right? So I don't know. So I'm going to jump into a quick story. Sandra, I don't know if you can do a quick share, but it looks like you're getting set up. So I'm going to share a quick story that I have actually. I went to Panama. So we launched the app back in 2018 in December. And there was the World Youth Day. So I didn't know what World Youth Day was, but every call it 3 years, there's this big, conference party is what some people call it, where the Pope goes and there's all kinds of events and hundreds of thousands at times of youth show up and just kind of go through a variety of events. And so I ended up going to Panama City in Panama with Eric, the other co-founder, next to Alex, and his twin brother. And we just had a bunch of swag, just Hallow things to give away. And at the time, I mean, think about it. We're just, young adults who just launched this app. Who knows if it's going to be successful? We just launched it like 5 weeks ago, and we're in another country just sharing it. And one of the things we were handing out were these little bags, these little Hallow, like little tote, these little drawstring bags, I should say. And we handed out, I don't know, maybe about 300 of them in total amongst all the people that we saw. And I mean, again, we're in Panama, so there's people from all over the world. There are people from Australia, people from different countries in Africa, people from Europe, wherever. And we were just handing them out. Fast forward, call it 13, maybe 14 months. I show up here in Connecticut, and I'm going to a new church, and there's like a young adult group. And I go to the event, and I sit down, and I look, and there's someone who has the bag. I'm like, what? Where did you get that? Like, they literally are only like, I have the other 100 to 200 that are left in the world, like in my apartment. So I'm pretty sure this girl just didn't break into my place. So I'm like, how did you get that? And she was like, oh, like I was at World Youth Day, and you were the one who gave it to me. And it just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, like, well, how did it go? She's like, yeah, I took the drawstring bag. I was cool. I didn't do Hallow. I didn't do anything for like 4 or 5 months. And then I found the little card that you gave me. There was like this little postcard, and it had this thing about Hallow. So she downloaded it and just started using it regularly and found it incredibly helpful. So it just blew my mind that just that one little interaction, it took months for it to work, but it ended up impacting her, and we kind of went full circle. So I just thought that was kind of cool. And it speaks to Grant's point. You never know when just sharing the link, just telling someone about it, you may never see them again. But I was lucky enough to get to interact with them again and know that it had helped them. So anyway, that was my little story. I'll pass it over to Sandro because there was a question about the family feature. So hopefully he can explain that.
Yep. And it's actually pretty funny. I was just right before this, I was on a Zoom with a new group of people, and there was a priest from Indiana. And, I introduced myself at the beginning, a small group, whatever. He's like, Hallow, were you at World Youth Day in Panama? So, I mean, that's Brian and I have not even talked about that.
I did not even know you were going to say that. Yeah, that's great.
No, that's doing the Lord's work. No, that's great. That's great. So family feature. So this will also be a good demo if you have like digital prayer groups that you're doing or Zooms with friends across wherever. One of the cool new features of Zoom and Google Meets is that when you join from a mobile device, you can actually now share your screen. So can you also make my phone a co-host, Brian?
Gotcha.
Cool. Share my nope. Share my screen on my phone, and then you'll be able to not only see it here. See what I got on the old phone here. But the audio also comes through. So if you want to lead a meditation or a prayer like with a group via Zoom, that's now really easy. And we're actually working with a bunch of Catholic schools to incorporate it into kind of remote classes and things. So if that's interesting, definitely reach out to me on that. But so here you go. Here's the app. Got your home screen. Then the community screen down here. There's 2 sections to this, and this is the new version of the app's about to launch. So for those of you that have the test flight version, yours obviously looks a little bit different. But so at the top there's prayers, and then there's family. So the family groups, as it stands today, you can have as many of them as you want. I got me and my fiance, my actual family, obviously an Italian family, the Hallow team, some Herald groups, whatever. The idea is a place to share prayers, intentions, and reflections. So you can share intentions here. An intention, that'll go out to the rest of the group. And so one of the things that actually popped up when Grant was talking, like if you're looking for ways to get people in, it can often be like, hey, I've got this like digital prayer group, and I'd love for you to be able to share like what I can pray for you. So like just asking people like, can you share intentions? Got a group of people that want to pray for you, and just inviting them to the group as a way into Hallow, which can often be powerful. So to add people up in the details section at the top, you have the name, who's in it. You can add people either via text or link or whatever you want. When you finish an individual prayer, so whatever, let's go to the Daily Hallow. two things. You can actually schedule them ahead of time to go out to people. So underneath the play button, there's a little calendar icon. You can actually schedule them to go out to a group. So if you want to pray a certain, people do like rosaries on Fridays, things like that. You can schedule for a specific time to a specific group. But then after you're done with the prayer, get the old Father Mike here, so you can hear the audio.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel.
But then when you're done, the normal default for your prayer reflection is just your own private journal. But if you click that Saving Privately button, you can actually share the prayer either with or without a reflection to individual groups, and you can do combinations or whatever. And so this we have people using either like individually, right, like this, or you can like we have priests who are using it for their community. So like just have an open invite, the link to the group to anyone in the parish that wants to join, and the parish or the priest will occasionally share like daily lectios and reflections, things like that. You can do that with, your friend groups, prayer groups, whatever the case is. So that is the prayer family.